Hello friends! Today I coffee dyed, tea dyed, and Easter egg dyed some papers, and it was the first time I had ever done it, and I wanted to try it because it seems like a lot of people do it. So I tried a couple of different things. Some of them I crinkled the paper up first, and then others I folded. You could see a crease line here. I folded them and then put them in the coffee. The darker ones are the coffee dyed. So, and then some of them I didn't get it all over. I don't know if people like that or if they prefer it to be a lot more solid like this. I would love some feedback actually on that, if you could take a second to let me know if you prefer something that's more solid or messy. I would call that messy. So if you don't mind, I would love your feedback. This is another messy one. So we also have, this is, I think these were, no, this is coffee dyed too. These are darker. And most of these I did solid through, but this is a messy one. So let me know if you like that or prefer the other. So that was the coffee dyed. And then I did a bunch of tea dyed, and you can see that the tea dye is much lighter. And I did the tea dye because it's less acidic, but it doesn't seem like people are too worried about that when it comes to their junk journals. Here's one that I crinkled, and it kind of kept the crinkles in it. Let me know if you like the crinkles too. Some people iron their papers, and I'm not sure if that's to dry them or if it's to straighten them. I'm not really sure. So anyway, these are the tea dyed, and then I did some with Easter egg dye. And so we got some combination colors here, but I think they turned out pretty. I don't know if you guys like the colorful ones or if it's more of a, coffee dye thing that people prefer. I have no idea. I'm new to all of this, but I sure did have fun. So this one, I put in a bag with the dye, and I crinkled this up in the bag, and then I threw some coffee grounds on it and kind of rubbed them in. And so that's how that came out. Some of these I think are really pretty. This almost looks like a map, really, when I think about it. So I had fun, and I ended up hanging them outside to dry on I have a little laundry hanger, and I hung them on there, and they dried very quickly. I couldn't believe how fast. Of course, I live in Florida. The sun was out today, so that wasn't a problem. This is a little bit of a tea bag that I kind of squeezed on there with a little bit of the leftover dye, so it's just kind of messy. This one's really messy, and I was rough with it, and I ripped it, and I might end up doing something with decoupage with that since it's kind of ripped. We'll see. Oh, look at this side. That's really, really messy and dark. So it kind of looks cool. So anyway, here's the results of what I worked on today. And I had a few that were still drying. This is some tea dyed paper that I did. It had lines on it. You can still faintly see it. And I purposely folded it and then put it in the tea dye so that it would have a permanent crease in it. I just was experimenting. I just wanted to see what would happen when I did different things. And here's one that I crinkled up and then put in the tea. And I can always flatten it under a book, and it wouldn't be perfectly flat, but it would be less crinkly than it is. So at any rate, I have the video of how I did the process, what I did, why certain things turned out the way they did, and the results of each thing. But look at that gorgeous pile of papers there. Look at that. That's delicious. So anyway, stick around and watch the video so you can see how I did it. And I hope you enjoy it. This is the first time that I've ever done this, but I wanted to experiment and I wanted to share my experiment with you. I've started with 2 cups of water that I've warmed up here in my little tea kettle, and I'm using 2 tea bags of English breakfast tea, which is black tea. I'm going to soak the papers in a variety of ways. This first one I'm folding in half, and then I'm just going to lay a couple of them in there. Again, it's my first time. I'm just experimenting. I'm seeing how the paper behaves. I decided to crinkle some up, and I just want to see how that works out. The tea is still really hot, so I'm using my tongs to pull the papers out. And I grabbed a bath mat and I'm putting the papers on the bath mat. Now I have discovered that it's just as easy to grab a pan and put them in a pan. So I won't use a bath mat next time. Again, I'm just learning as I go. Something that I learned working with the papers is when I crinkled them, some of them were hard to uncrinkle and then hang on my little dryer. So a thicker paper I think is fine, but when it came to thinner paper, it almost disintegrated. So I would say it's fine to crinkle it, but don't crinkle it tightly. The ones that I did a loose crinkle on were pretty easy to open up. If I did a tight crinkle, it was almost impossible to open those back up. I'm using a variety of papers. We've got some notebook paper and also book pages, and then just some paper that I had in my scrap pile. While the tea papers are drying, I'm going to begin using the Easter egg die. And so I'm separating the packets, and I have to mix them real good. And the first paper that I'm dyeing, I shoved into a little plastic bag and sprinkled the dye in there just to kind of see what would happen. And it didn't really spread it the way I would have liked. And truly, just experimenting, I'm sprinkling some coffee grounds on there, and you can see crinkling it up in my hand, and then setting it aside. So I'm going to go through and just very hands-on try that out. So another thing I learned while using the Easter egg die was that I wanted it to spread a little more easily. So I add a little bit of water to the pan along with these coffee grounds, and then I sprinkled the dye on, and then crinkled it up, as you can see me doing all of that. And I think the results, turn out pretty good. Now I have cleaned the pan out and removed all of the coffee grounds, and I'm just using the dye, and I'm just kind of swishing the paper through the Easter egg dye and setting it aside in the pan. I'm stacking them on top of each other, and I'm kind of hoping that they'll bleed and run onto each other. For the Easter egg dye, I started with the lighter colors, and I went from light to dark, and that way I didn't have to clean the pan in between, changing the colors. It worked. So that's how I did that. So here's my little laundry hanger, and I put it right outside of my front porch, and I hung my papers on there. The ones you see me hanging here are the tea dyed papers. I did them in segments, if you will. So the sun dried them, and honestly, it only took a few minutes. I hope you enjoyed dyeing papers with me today, and I hope you learned something from my process. If you did, smash that like button and subscribe to my page. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, and I have a Creating with Jovi Facebook page. Thanks for watching. See you soon.